Dave Shelley is the director of Crossroads Missions. If you're just tuning in, we want you to meet our guests afresh. Alice Achan is here from Uganda. She is the founder and director of Christian Counseling Fellowship. And I love that we can take this time. We only do it twice a year? We make a special focus, and we've been partnering with you, Alice, and with Pastor Charles Acquire since 2006. And in Africa, you say 206.
206.
206.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's 206.
And what a joy it has been to see hope, literally from the ground up, from devastated ground to new life.
Like I said, it's so much love, so much appreciative to the people of Canada of what they have done. You can imagine, you know, having 500 girls going through rehabilitation, counseling, and being reunited with their families, and equipping them with a dressmaking machine and a knitting machine, and having them put back in their community very successfully. I really want to thank you so much for this partnership, David Shelley, even for identifying us. And like I say, we give glory to God because it was a divine connection that we have to get connected with the Crossroads Ministries 2006.
Now, Denise was just there, and we were all praying for you, Denise, and the fruit of that trip has been our joy this week. And I know the two other reporters here are wanting to get at you now. You go, girls.
No, you know, Denise, and you've done a great job. And I just wonder, you know, as we're in the field and we see stories, what did it do for you, especially, you know, going to the IDP camps, but also seeing how a community could change and seeing the difference between the two worlds?
Well, there was one day when we went to the IDP camps with the Seeds of Love, and I remember this because it was a day that we just saw, and you'll get to see a little bit in the next report, just suffering. You know, seeing people totally bloated with infection from AIDS, seeing children crying and suffering, and they have no medication, they have nothing to comfort them, and you know, and I was really like, I was saying in my heart, like, God, this is enough. You know, isn't this enough suffering to see, like, that there's this much suffering? And what totally humbled me was going with these Seeds of Love, and they're singing. You know, it's like these women who live in these camps, by the way, so they're not coming from the outside. They are actually living in these terrible places and having to care for their own children. They're singing, and I'm just like, it was just such a humbling moment, and I think it's something whenever you go to a place like that, you have to wrestle with, because you just see suffering on a scale you're just not quite prepared for, and then you have to say, well, God, where are you in this?
And did you find him in that? Did you find an answer?
I found him in the Seeds of Love, because just the way that they are, they're praising him. They're not, you don't meet cynical people in Africa, and you don't see people who are like shaking their fist, but I know they're wrestling, and I know, Alice, you have wrestled with these questions yourself, and that's why I want to honor the people who are on the ground there, because they are on a daily basis going into these places and encountering suffering on a scale we don't know about, and they're doing it and they're not receiving anything really for what they are doing in the human way. But spiritually, I think that's the love you were talking about. I think God has given them something, enlarged their hearts, or he's done something to the point where they can actually sing and minister in the midst of all of this. And I think, so for me, that was probably, you know, one of those things that just hits you.
Well, my question was really, what was it like? What is it like for you now? Because you've gone there, and I know you were emailing me when you were there saying you're seeing poverty on a scale that you'd never seen before. Even though you have been overseas and you've been in poverty situations, what is it like now to come back in all the commercialization and craziness of Christmas? You know, you were in a mall the other weekend telling me, like, this is hard, right? Because you're seeing everybody just all about things and stuff, and let's get it, let's get it. And you're thinking, my goodness, just even a little bit of that is going to make such a huge difference in someone's life.
And I'd like to say that I'm so altruistic and that I just, you know, can totally shun this culture I live in, but I don't. And I like, you know, but yeah, you're right. Being in places like that, it's just, I just think, you know what, we just preoccupy ourselves with way too many things. And there, when you see people who live in a house that basically has maybe a pot to cook in, and that's about it, and maybe a reed mat to sleep on, and that's their possessions total, you know. It does give you some perspective on life and what are we really working so hard to accumulate here, and where is it going? And I think what Alice really impressed in me when I was there, and I will also see it, what happens when you invest in people. And I think that is God's heart, is that regardless of where we live, that we invest of ourselves in people. And that requires sacrifice. That requires thinking about someone else. And that requires maybe not having as many things. But there's something that we can give that's more than that.
Yeah, and I think when the Bible tells us that in my Father's house there are silvers and gold, do we expect God just to throw it right from heaven? It's just opportunity and the blessing that God has given to our brothers and sisters in Canada, that they have so much that they have given out to support our ministry. And I think that's what will the Bible say, that in my Father's house. And it's just God put clearly in the heart of these brothers and sisters in Canada. And this is what God means. God is not going to send this from heaven, but God is talking for our brothers and sisters who are so much blessed. Like Dania said, the only asset we have is a pot and a cooking pot in a home. But by God's grace, our sisters and brothers in Canada are able to give out to help this community start up alive. And this is really very, very, very interesting.
And I've asked Pastor Charles,
Exactly.
you know, when he was here, I asked him, what do you think about when you come to Canada and you look around? He said, you know what, I'm so happy that God has blessed, and now you're helping us. Without you, a brother who has resources or a sister who has resources, we couldn't do any of this. So we're so happy and pleased that God's blessed you this way.
What a gracious perspective.
That was his perspective on it.
We received into our home yesterday Pastor Eric Mombello from Zambia. He'll be joining us next week. It's his first trip out of Africa, and I can't imagine the culture shock for him of coming here and seeing how blessed we truly are.